Welcome to Info Sounds by InfoDrip, your go-to source for insightful discussions and explorations. Each week, we break down complex ideas into clear, engaging conversations designed to inform and inspire.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into something pretty important for you as you're looking to expand into Kenya, their new auto-populated VAT return system.
Yeah,
So this could really shake things up, so let's break it down.
definitely.
We've got three excellent sources from the Kenya Revenue Authority, the KRA, to help us understand all the ins and outs.
Okay, so what's interesting here is Kenya is trying to do two things at once, making VAT filing simpler, but also trying to boost compliance.
Right. Ambitious, to say the least.
But yeah, it's a big goal.
So what exactly is this system? Can you give us the basics?
Sure. So basically what the KRA is doing is they're pre-filling VAT returns using the data they already have
Okay.
from other systems like iTax. That's their online platform for filing taxes in Kenya.
Got it.
They're pulling data from eTIMS, eTIMS, customs records.
Wow.
So basically all that information about your sales and purchases, it's all going directly into your return.
So no more manual data entry.
Yeah, in theory. Less room for human error.
Sounds pretty good.
It has the potential, more time for businesses to, actually focus on business.
Right.
The KRA's hope is that it means you can spend your time and energy making sure the data they're putting in is actually accurate, not like getting bogged down in spreadsheets and calculators.
Yeah, that's the hope. But, I always think of that saying about computers, garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
So if that initial data is wrong, we'll get to all that later. But first, tell me, how does this actually work?
So one of the key features here is that the sales data that goes onto your VAT return, it's all pre-populated.
Okay.
But you can only increase the value. You can't actually decrease it.
Wait, hold on. That sounds like a problem. What if there are returns or canceled orders? Like, how do you make those adjustments?
Well, the KRA says that credit notes will solve that problem. But I've spoken to several accountants, and they're skeptical.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're very skeptical. They say the current system for credit notes is already kind of a nightmare,
Wow.
and they're worried this will make it even worse.
I see. Okay, so that's one thing to watch out for. What else should we know about?
Another big thing is this system focuses on the invoice date, not the transmission date. And this is where it could get a little tricky, especially when you're dealing with longer payment terms.
Yeah, that's true for a lot of businesses.
You see, you might have to declare and pay VAT on sales that you haven't actually been paid for yet.
Yeah, ouch.
That could be a big strain on cash flow, especially for a new business just trying to get established.
Yeah, imagine you land this big contract, invoice the client, but the payment terms are 60 days.
Right.
Now you've got to pay VAT on that invoice now, even though you haven't seen any of that money.
Exactly. So careful cash flow planning
Yeah.
and really open communication with your clients is going to be essential here.
Okay, good advice. So let's talk TIMS and eTIMS. I know these are electronic invoicing systems.
Right.
But how do those systems actually tie into all of this?
So those are actually really key to this whole system. When you're claiming purchase credits, you have to use a valid transmitted TIMS or eTIMS invoice.
Okay.
And that invoice has to have your buyer's PIN on it. No more paper receipts or just assuming things are correct.
Wow.
This really puts the responsibility on your shoulders to make sure your suppliers are following the rules as well.
So no more cutting corners.
Exactly.
So how do I actually check and make sure that everything's legit? Is there like a way to verify these invoices?
So they have introduced a QR code scanning feature, which, that's good.
Okay.
It's a step in the right direction.
Makes sense.
But it does mean you'll need to be super meticulous about checking every single invoice you get from your suppliers.
Yeah, no more cutting corners.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like this whole system is really shaking things up. What are the wider implications for businesses? What does this actually mean?
Well, it's clearly a big push towards digitalization, right?
Yeah.
And transparency. It's also going to force businesses to be way more proactive about compliance,
Yeah.
both their own and their suppliers. And that could potentially have this ripple effect throughout the entire supply chain.
That makes a lot of sense. So we talked about some of the potential downsides, but there have to be some positives to this system, right? It can't all be bad?
Of course not. Of course not. There are definite upsides.
Okay.
Like the system, in theory, should make VAT filing a lot more accurate and straightforward.
Right.
Less room for human error.
Yeah, that's always good.
Less headaches for everyone involved.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
And I imagine it'll also make it harder for businesses to, shall we say, fudge the numbers.
Yeah, that's definitely the KRA's goal here, right? They want to close those compliance gaps
Yep.
and just increase transparency overall.
Yeah.
And a system like this definitely makes it harder to hide transactions or underreport income.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way, right? Easier for honest businesses, but maybe a bit trickier to navigate if you're not prepared.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to really understand the ins and outs of this new system before you just dive in head first.
Great point.
Ah,
Yeah, it really feels like they're walking this tightrope here.
right.
Trying to make things easier for taxpayers, but also like really cracking down on compliance.
Yeah, for sure. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
And this whole reliance on technology, it adds like another layer of complexity here.
Right.
I mean, what happens if the system crashes
Yeah.
or there are connectivity issues?
That's a great point. I mean, Kenya has made great strides with digital infrastructure.
Wow. Yeah.
But, things aren't perfect. So does that mean if the internet goes down, like my whole business grinds to a halt?
Well, hopefully not.
Yeah.
But it does highlight the importance of having like a really robust and reliable tech infrastructure for this whole thing to actually work.
Right.
Any kind of hiccups, they could really throw a wrench in the whole process, especially for businesses that rely heavily on online transactions.
Yeah, for sure. And we haven't even talked about the burden this puts on businesses just to stay compliant.
Oh, yeah.
Now they're not just responsible for their own e-invoicing, but also for making sure that their suppliers are on board.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a lot to manage, especially for smaller businesses that might not have a dedicated accounting team or something.
Absolutely. Businesses need to be really proactive, educate themselves on the new requirements,
Right.
and potentially even invest in like resources and training to make sure that they're really doing everything by the book.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about the cash flow issue. We talked about the challenges with the longer payment terms,
Right.
but even if you are getting paid on time, this system seems like it could tie up a lot of capital, right?
Yeah, that's a valid concern. Businesses need to factor in the impact this could have on their working capital. They might need to adjust credit policies, look into other financing options, or even renegotiate some contracts to kind of like mitigate that risk.
This all feels like a pretty big shift for businesses in Kenya.
Oh, yeah, it is. It
Yeah.
is. And I think it's important to remember, like, this is just the beginning.
Oh, right.
The KRA is rolling the system out in phases, and there are bound to be more changes and adjustments along the way.
Got it.
Businesses really need to stay informed and be prepared to adapt as things develop.
Okay, so let's step back for a second and think about you specifically.
Okay.
You're interested in the tech sector in Kenya, right? How might this new VAT system impact, like, tech startups or software companies, especially those working with international clients, maybe dealing with those longer payment terms?
That's a good question. The tech sector, it moves fast.
Sure.
They've got these flexible payment structures,
Okay.
and the system could create some friction there. Like a lot of tech startups rely on venture capital funding,
Right.
and that funding often comes with very specific milestones and payment schedules.
Yeah, of course.
And this VAT system could really complicate those arrangements.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what about those international clients?
Right.
Many tech companies work across borders, use complex payment systems, all that stuff.
Yeah.
How does all of that fit into this new VAT landscape?
Well, that just adds another layer of complexity on top of everything else.
Yeah.
You've got currency fluctuations, international tax treaties, different invoicing practices. All of this could create some serious challenges.
Well, for sure.
Businesses really need to be careful and make sure they're complying not just with Kenyan regulations, but with the regulations of their clients' countries too.
So it sounds like navigating this new VAT system is going to require like a whole new level of financial knowledge and attention to detail, right?
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
And it highlights the importance of having good advisors on your team. Lawyers, accountants, tax specialists,
Right.
people who really understand these regulations and can help you kind of navigate all the complexities.
It's not just about understanding the rules. It's also about having that support system in place.
Exactly. And that's especially true for businesses that are new to the Kenyan market. You're stepping into this new regulatory environment.
Yeah.
And it's really crucial to have those experienced guides to help you along the way.
This auto-populated VAT system feels like just one piece of a much bigger puzzle.
It is, yeah. And that puzzle's constantly evolving, The
No.
Kenyan government's pushing for digitalization and transparency across the board.
Right. So this VAT system is just kind of one part of that.
Yeah, it's one manifestation of that bigger trend.
So what does all this mean for someone like you who's looking to kind of break into that Kenyan tech scene?
I think it means, like, you need to be prepared, right? Do your homework, understand the regulations, and build a strong network of advisors and partners who can help you navigate everything.
So we've talked about the pitfalls, the challenges,
Right.
but we can't forget about the potential opportunities here, right?
Of course not.
This new system could create opportunities for businesses that are, agile, adaptable.
Absolutely. Businesses that can use technology effectively, streamline their processes, and build strong relationships with their suppliers are going to be in a good position to thrive.
So it's not all doom and gloom, right? It's about being prepared, being informed, and being willing to kind of adapt to the changing landscape.
Exactly. And it's about seeing this new system not just as a challenge, but as a chance to innovate and optimize your business practices.
All right, so let's recap what we've learned about this whole auto-populated VAT system.
We've covered a lot. We talked about the potential benefits like reducing errors, increasing transparency.
Yep.
But we also discussed the potential downsides, the cash flow challenges, that added compliance burden.
Yeah, for sure.
And we talked about how it affects the tech sector specifically, highlighting the need for careful planning and having that strong support network.
Exactly.
We also talked about staying informed and adapting as the regulatory landscape changes.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
Right.
What are some key takeaways for our listener as they think about their next steps?
First of all, don't panic, right? This new system might seem daunting, but it's manageable if you approach it strategically.
Right, it's about being proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. Start by doing your research.
Yep.
Get familiar with the KRA's guidelines and resources.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to other businesses that have already implemented the system.
Yeah, get those firsthand accounts.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to seek out professional advice. A good accountant or tax specialist can be incredibly valuable here.
Right, they can help you navigate all the intricacies of this new system and make sure you're doing everything correctly.
Precisely. And remember, this is a journey, not a sprint.
Right.
There will be bumps in the road.
Yeah.
But with good preparation and support, you can not only survive this VAT system, but actually use it to strengthen your business.
Wow, it feels like we just unpacked a whole suitcase worth of info here.
Yeah, it's dense, but hopefully it's given our listener, a better picture of what this auto-populated VAT system really means for doing business in Kenya.
Definitely. So to kind of wrap things up here, let's boil it down to some key takeaways.
Right.
What are the absolute must-knows for anyone listening who is thinking about doing business in Kenya?
I think the biggest thing is the system is, like you said earlier, a double-edged sword, right? It can make things easier.
Right.
But it also brings new challenges, so going in blind is just not an option.
Yeah, it's not a magic solution.
No.
It's a new set of rules you've got to understand
Exactly.
and adapt to.
And those rules have, real consequences, especially for cash flow. You have to be prepared to pay VAT on sales that you haven't even collected on yet.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's a fundamental shift that could really hit your bottom line.
Especially in those early stages when every shilling matters.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole compliance piece. The KRA is clearly serious about cracking down on tax evasion.
Yeah.
And this system gives them a powerful new tool to do that.
Right.
So you have to be squeaky clean, both in your own business and how you deal with your suppliers.
So no more handshake agreements or looking the other way on iffy invoices?
No, everything has to be documented, verified, legit. And that takes time, effort, and resources.
Right, so factor all that in.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, this is serious. What's the next step? What should someone do to prepare?
Well, knowledge is power, right?
Of course.
The KRA has a ton info on their website about this new system.
Oh, okay.
Dig into that. Don't just skim it. Really understand those details.
And I bet talking to other businesses in Kenya would be super helpful.
Yeah.
Hearing how they're adapting, what problems they're running into.
Absolutely. Network, connect, learn from what others are going through, and don't forget professional advice.
Right.
A good accountant or tax consultant can be worth their weight in gold here.
Yeah, they can help you with the nitty-gritty details and make sure you're not missing anything.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey, not a sprint, right? There's going to be a learning curve.
Yeah.
But with the right prep and support, you can not only survive this VAT system, you can actually use it to make your business stronger.
So it's not just about compliance, it's about finding opportunity in all this change.
Exactly. And that's the spirit of entrepreneurship, right? Finding creative solutions and turning challenges into opportunities.
Now, bringing it back to you, our listener, you're interested in tech, right? And this system is going to have a big impact on that industry, especially because so much of tech is global. So think about how this new VAT system specifically affects your plans. Will it change who you partner with, how you structure your contracts, maybe even where you decide to base your operations?
Those are great questions. And here's another one. How might this system affect Kenya's tech sector as a whole? Will it make the country more or less attractive to investors?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's one we'll all be watching play out over time.
Yeah, definitely.
But for now, we've given you the tools to start exploring these issues yourself.
Remember, change can be a little scary, but it also creates opportunities.
Right.
So stay informed, stay curious, and stay ahead of the game.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.